let's move on with the next speaker on this stage, and it's going to be a very interesting presentation about Europe's languages and artificial intelligence. And we will hear from Georg Rehm. Professor Rehm works as a principal researcher in the Speech and Language Technology Lab at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence in Berlin. Currently, he is the coordinator of European Language Grid and European Language Equality projects, and a principal investigator in the European project LINKS, building the legal knowledge graph for smart compliance services in multilingual Europe. And also, he works in the European project Human AI Net, and of course, number of other projects. He applies his knowledge. In April 2021, Georg Rehm was appointed honorary professor for outstanding achievements in research and education at Humboldt University in Berlin. Since 2013, Georg Rehm has been the head of the German-Austrian chapter of the World Wide Web Consortium. Also, he's especially involved in digital publishing, Web of Things, data activity, credible web. And he is related to ICT and standardization. So welcome, Georg. So it's great to have you here, and as a representative for all European languages and trying to make it work, how many of them do you speak yourself?
Oh, it's the wrong question to ask me. So my native tongue is German, obviously. I do speak a little bit of English. I'm learning a little bit of Greek by now, and that's pretty much it. I understand a couple of other languages, but I'm not fluent in them.
Well, at least you need to know one Lithuanian word, which is labas, means hello, and it can open many doors for you here, I'm sure. So, Georg, you'll be telling us a very interesting perspective on how to unite and make all European languages accessible with the use of AI. So, the time for your presentation.
Thanks very much for the kind words, for the invitation to present our work here in this session today. So the title of my presentation is Europe's Languages and AI, European Language Grid and European Language Equality. These are two European projects that I coordinate or co-coordinate respectively. In terms of languages and AI, we could talk about many, many different things. And here in this presentation, I will focus on at least some of them. And our point of departure, and you mentioned it just now in the introduction, is multilingualism. Yeah, multilingualism is one of the inherent concepts, one of the building blocks, one of the founding principles of the European Union. We have 24 official European Union languages. They all have the same status, which was a very good idea of the founders of the European Union, not to have this one language that is maybe better than others, or maybe that is more important than others, that would have directly delegated all the other languages to the sidelines, which maybe is not the right thing to do. In addition to the 24 official EU languages, we have dozens of co-official languages, we have regional languages, minority languages, languages of immigrants, of trade partners, of tourists, of course, as well, such as Germans traveling to Lithuania, needing to learn hello. And this whole multilingual web creates quite a few economic challenges, social challenges, technical challenges. Only some of them are listed here on the slide. The digital single market is one of the flagship projects of the European Union, where we want to have one big digital market in Europe, one single market. But if that market isn't inherently multilingual, then we will have multiple markets that are siloed by their specific languages. And right now, we also can witness with the COVID-19 infodemic a couple of years ago with the financial crisis that cross-border, cross-lingual, cross-cultural communication is still an issue. It's still not possible to use AI technologies or language technologies, natural language processing technologies, seamlessly to communicate across language borders. There are beginnings, but it's not entirely possible right now. So I just mentioned the main keyword here, which is language technology. Yeah, language technology is technology that massively builds upon results of artificial intelligence research, computer science research, but also computational linguistics. Think about language technology as a mix of AI and bleeding edge computer science and computational linguistics results. Other acronyms often mentioned in that regard are natural language processing, natural language understanding. There's a new kid on the block now, LLMs, large language models, which also have to be part of our language technology solutions. Yeah, language technology is language-centric AI with many applications, such as simple ones, spell checking, grammar checking, web search engines, also mentioned in the previous presentation by Angelo, social media analytics and voice control, machine translation, and many, many others. They all work on and with language. We've been working on this topic for many years, and already more than 10 years ago, we anticipated that we need modern AI technologies, leading language technologies developed in Europe to enable multilingualism throughout Europe. Yeah, we want to enable multilingualism technologically. We want to have technologies that bring all European citizens, companies, organizations, NGOs, public administrations into the position to communicate across language borders and to make use of language technologies in their day-to-day lives. Back then, again, 2012, we did a study with more than 200 colleagues from all over Europe, and we wanted to find out what is the level of technology support for Europe's languages. And we did this not for all European languages, but for these about 30 European languages, including all official ones. And we found that, and this is not a surprise to those who know a few things about this field, there is no language that receives excellent support through language technology. There's one language with good support, and that's English. And then there is a long tail of languages that receive only moderate support or fragmentary support, and quite a few languages that receive no support at all through language technologies. Again, that was the case in 2012. Graphically, it looks like this. Yeah, so we have good support for English, and then this long tail of languages that have very, very bad technology support, which is not the right thing to do, given that all of these languages should be equal in Europe. And to further illustrate the results of modern AI technologies, we can have a look at what natural language processing has done recently, thanks to deep learning, to neural technologies. The situation has improved. Yeah, there are better systems, better technologies, but not necessarily for all languages. And let me briefly illustrate this point with a video. Don't worry, it's only 1 minute, but it illustrates the point quite nicely. It's recently gone viral in Spain. Have a look.
Siri sabe muchas cosas. Siri sabe muchas cosas. Dime, ¿quieres hablar conmigo o en castellano o... Creo que no te entiendo. Creo que no te entiendo.
Yeah, so the little girl is trying unsuccessfully to talk to Siri on her iPad in Galician. Yeah, she speaks Galician. She's a native speaker of Galician, and which is one of the regional co-official languages in Spain, but it's not supported by Siri. So there's a language barrier, and this is a situation that is fortunately now finally on the radar of the European Union. 3 years ago, the European Parliament passed this resolution here. It was a joint report from various committees in the European Parliament, and with a landslide vote, they said, yes, we need to do something about this. We need language equality in the digital age. Yeah, it's a weird term, but what it means is that all European languages should be supported through technologies in the digital realm equally, so that we have a situation in which the girl in Spain can talk to her favorite conversational agent in her own language and doesn't have to fall back to some other language that she maybe also happens to speak. And I will touch upon this project later on, this topic, digital language equality, later on. I want to briefly introduce one European project in that regard. It's called European Language Grid. And in European Language Grid, we now finally have the means and the technologies to put together one common umbrella platform, one digital infrastructure, one cloud platform for the whole European language technology field. So this is meant to be the main platform, the primary platform for language technology in Europe. In Europe, we also have a fairly big industry representation. There are many, many companies, almost 1,000 companies with AI by now, probably even more startups that work on these technologies, more than 1,000 companies developing language technologies in Europe. And we want to be a virtual home for them, for their commercial technologies, also for non-commercial technologies developed by many research groups. Of these, we have about 800 in Europe, 800 research groups that work on language technologies. We are approaching now the end of our third year in the project, so we are almost at the end, but not quite. The final release of the platform is currently in progress. Don't worry, I won't spare you with any technical details here. We have a fairly complex technical setup, but that is easy to use to our user base. Right now, in our current version of the system, which is constantly growing, day by day, new services, new resources. Let's say, what is a service? I haven't mentioned that. A service could be anything from text summarization for Lithuanian, for example, or maybe text analytics for Estonian, or it could be machine translation from Latvian to Polish, for example. So, and we have over 450 of these functional services and tools in the platform already. They can be used right away through our open APIs that we have in the system. They can also be used on the website. They can be used in Python code. We have a Python SDK that we offer. And for others, maybe who want to build new technologies, new tools, new services, we have almost 4,500 corpora and data sets in the system that can be used then to develop new things. And let me briefly show you what it looks like. This is a quick, very, very quick demo. Now we are browsing the catalog. It doesn't look particularly fancy. The main goal of this platform is that customers who know, or companies or organizations that know, hey, we need certain language technologies, maybe we need a certain text analytics tool, or we need some text summarization tool, that they can find these tools in this platform. So interested users, interested researchers can find through this interface here relevant resources for specific languages. So you can filter by language, you can filter by tool, by data type, and so on. And that way you can find your way through what we call the ELG, the European Language Grid catalog. Here's one example with a machine translation service. So maybe we know that we need machine translation for the language pair German to English. And we can find this tool here provided by UEdin, that is the University in Edinburgh. And this way you can find the tool, you can try it out, you can see if the functionality and the quality of the output fits your requirements, and then you can even check some more sophisticated analysis tools like morphosyntactic analysis. Here's a tool that does morphosyntactic parsing and even produces nice dependency graphs of the syntactic structure of your input, in this case, part of the I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King. So it's a fairly focused, flexible, open platform that we offer here for the community. So companies, researchers can upload their data sets, they can make available their different tools. As mentioned, the whole community is extremely fragmented in Europe, and this way they can make their tools and their resources available, and hopefully we can provide and unleash some good network effects here. Yeah, so in the very near future, we will have broken through the barrier of a 5-figure number of resources available in the whole platform. And I would like to use the remaining time not to talk about these graphs here, maybe just very quickly this one. So in the platform, we can also just check how well are the languages supported through technologies that we have in the system. And we have a fairly good representation of the European landscape. As you can see here, by far the most represented language in our catalog is English. And then we have Spanish and German and French. Let's check if Lithuanian is on this list here. No, it isn't. We have, talking about the Baltic countries, we have Latvian, for which quite a bit of technology exists. But you can see that there is a situation here that cannot be considered at all digital language equality. I checked this slide here, which gives a brief representation of the industry situation in Europe. According to our sources, and we work together with experts in the different countries. In Lithuania, we have, at least according to our catalog, we have 13 companies working on language technology, developing language technology. There are a few chatbot companies. There's also machine translation active in Lithuania. So this is a good start. But by now, these numbers are about 1 year old. By now, I guess there are many additional companies. Earlier today, so this is my second conference already today. Earlier today, we had our 10th Meta Forum conference series where you can learn more about language technology, about European Language Grid and what we do in the project. Top right, you can see our YouTube channel. It's an old screenshot. We don't have five subscribers. We have a bit more now. But if you're interested in more, you can check the YouTube channel. All the sessions will be available there if you want more. What we have also been doing in the project is supporting other companies, other research groups. Yeah, and we had open calls. We used about 2 million euros of our project money to support other ideas towards multilingual Europe, towards multilingual technologies to boost multilingualism in Europe. 10 of these projects have already finished, and they have provided additional resources, additional technologies, for example, for Italian, for Basque, Basque speaking smart speaker. And we have also been working on sign languages quite a bit. Let's briefly go back to European language equality. Back in 2012, we found that at least 21 European languages are in danger of digital extinction. That's what it boils down to, that these languages are in fact in danger of digital extinction. So if a little girl in Spain cannot use Galician digitally, then she will fall back to Spanish probably. Yeah, and that way there will be less and less demand for Galician, which will then delegate Galician to the sidelines, which is not ideal. So something needs to be done. Our findings 10 years ago created quite a bit of attention, also in the European Parliament. And recently, earlier this year, we started now a project called European Language Equality, in which we are developing a plan how to bring about digital language equality in Europe for Europe. Yeah, so this is not a research project, it's a preparation project. We are developing a strategy and a roadmap how to bring about digital language equality. How are we doing this? We have many different focus groups and partners in this big project, in which we sit together and we look at the current state of play. Yeah, so where are we right now, and where do we want to be in 10 years' time, in 2030? And this big landscaping exercise and forecasting, technology forecasting exercise is happening as we speak. And these different results will be compiled then in the next couple of weeks and months, and then presented to the European Union in June next year. That is the plan, hopefully again with a face-to-face conference. I would have loved to travel to Vilnius for this conference. I couldn't. Hopefully next year we can do it again. Yeah, so let me wrap up and conclude. So Europe needs clearly multilingual, trustworthy, and also human-centric AI. We are doing our part in these projects to establish the European Language Grid as the primary platform and marketplace for language technology in Europe. This is an initiative from the European language technology and language-centric AI community for the European community in this space, and the global market size is generally estimated at being enormous in the next couple of years, and Europe has a very strong base. We have world-class companies, world-class research groups, and we want our community to participate and to be a key player here. The project will not finish and then stop everything. Yeah, we will initialize a legal entity next year, which will then take over as a not-for-profit company, maybe like a foundation or some kind of association that will then take care of the European Language Grid extension and maintenance and operation. And this way, we also contribute to digital language equality in Europe by giving all our languages one virtual home and umbrella platform. Yes, and then the final things to do to finish up, next steps in ELG, to develop the final version of the platform, to populate it further with data sets and resources, and then to make it broadly available to everybody. If you're interested in more details, you can check our various publications. You can follow us on the socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and so on. We also have a newsletter with more than 2,500 subscribers already, which you are welcome to subscribe to. And with that, I would like to conclude so that we have a few more minutes for questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Georg, for your presentation. And as you mentioned briefly, so data sets is a key factor here. How much data do we have to create the digital language and create, for example, language like Lithuanian. But what shall we do locally? Maybe there is a way how can we make those data sets larger, acting here and just fueling to the European level?
That is an excellent question. And we also talked about this very question earlier in the conference, in the concluding session. Because the data situation for many of the smaller languages, meaning the languages with less speakers than, let's say, Spanish or French on the planet. Lithuanian has about 2 million speakers, roundabout, and there is of course the content industry. Yeah, they produce content. There are libraries with many books written in Lithuanian. There is Wikipedia in Lithuanian and many other data sets that can be used, but clearly, obviously, these data sets are combined significantly smaller than, let's say, data sets for English, for example. And what we need to do is to bring about strategies to combine, to unlock, to free up as much data as we can, especially for these languages that we typically refer to as under-resourced. Yeah, we have little resources for these, and we need to be creative. We need to look into what digital libraries are doing, book scanning projects, maybe public sector data can be used, and all of this data needs to be collected and put together in a creative way so that we, for example, can train large language models for these languages.
Yeah, but I believe there is a way from a wish to the actual action plan, and someone has to take those steps. So we hope that Lithuanian AI associations and other enthusiasts are listening to you and are ready to put some extra work for that to happen. And you mentioned another interesting thing about digital extinction and how languages could disappear in this global world. So in Lithuania recently we have faced some political resistance in saying that if all the autocorrects will fill up the rest of the words that we want to say or the phrases, very soon we are going to forget our own language. So what can you comment to those politicians or people who have the same fears?
I understand the fears, yeah. So and we've worked also actively with politicians from Lithuania in Lithuania. There are these fears; they are not totally ungrounded. The main thing is that the technologies are, first of all, trustworthy. I think this is now a given, that we have trustworthy technologies, and that these technologies are not too immersive in our regular lives. Yeah. So let's take an extreme example. A student in school is supposed to write a test and they do nothing. They just press a button and then they write the test using AI. Yeah, that can't be a solution. Technically, it's possible, but maybe it's not the right thing to do. Yeah, so we need to have a good balance of using AI technologies for use cases that they are great at, without using them in ways so that we forget important cultural techniques like actual writing, for example. Yeah, handwriting is already also an issue that many educators see threatened because of lots of typing and swiping and touchpad interfaces. It needs to be reasonably balanced without hindering progress, I think.
And as an active learner on Duolingo right now, I can admit I'm cheating myself a little bit. Sometimes, just clicking onto the right English words. But getting back to Duolingo, for example, Lithuanian language is impossible to learn there. And now we speak that we want to go even an extra step, making like multilingual Europe, making AI work for us. But aren't we missing some additional steps in this educational journey?
For sure. There are many things that are underexplored right now. Yeah. So language change is one of these. Yeah. Language change has often been talked about in linguistics and computational linguistics, and especially older colleagues, they say that emojis change our language for the worse, and that our languages are going down the drain because of acronyms, and these have been around in the internet and the digital realm forever. Our languages are still fine and still alive. Languages change. That happens. That's a normal dynamic process that cannot be avoided. That languages change, and the underexploredness here refers to the effects of AI technologies, of NLP, natural language processing technologies, but also unrelated to those. Yeah, what are the effects of mobile phone use and iPad use on the younger generation? All of this needs to be taken into account, and then I'm not saying that this all needs to be regulated in a very strict way, but it all needs to be well balanced so that progress is made into the right direction without restricting Europe even further through regulation, so that we lose behind when compared to other continents.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there are so many ways of replacing our natural language with such things like emojis or some acronyms. So thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing your experience with us, and as well wish all the best for your project and to reach your targets by 2030 and more.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.